Hello and welcome to my second episode where I am going to be going through color correction in TF2 videos. I am by no means, a professional like editor or something, but I've seen so many videos with really bad color correction. Though that doesn't mean that you can really use, for example, a themed color correction for Halloween video contest or something. That's totally fine, but when people just add a random preset or something, or they come up with some really bad color correction, and then they start wondering why people are like downvoting the video and being like even like sort of mad in the comments. But it's pretty obvious because it is important to not destroy TF2 colors, because then you can't really see much. For example, with some color corrections you can't even see the kill notices, which is really important as well. And yeah, but overall color correction TF2 isn't really easy thing to do. If you can come up with really good settings that you like, just go for basics and try to add a bit of contrast and highlight the colors. That's my suggestion. But if you're willing to play with the color correction, then let's get into this. So like I said, by no means I'm not a professional, so this is just going to be my own like color correction that I find pretty good. It's almost like Morf's color correction, if anyone remembers a Swedish TF2 video editor called Morf. I really liked his color corrections. So yeah, the first thing that we'll need, of course, is recorded TF2 footage. So from the first tutorial where I went through a recording process, encoding and rendering settings and whatnot in TF2, I recorded this clip just for the test purpose. So I'm gonna be using the same clip. And the second thing that you will need is, of course, a video editing program. So I'm using Vegas Pro 11. And the next thing that you will need is Magic Bullet Looks. I'm using that plugin. It is a custom plugin, and when you install Sony Vegas, you won't have it by default. So you will have to find the right version to download for for your 64-bit Windows version or 32-bit. Because I remember when I was installing this custom plugin, I was having issues and it wasn't very easy. So hopefully you guys will be able to sort it out on your own. Just take your time and you'll eventually find it. So I have the preset saved already. It's called Morf Call. So I'm just gonna drag it over here, and then we can go through the color correction settings and whatnot. Like we can see right here that the colors didn't really change. Wait, I think I can turn the preview somehow. There you go. You can see how the colors changed. So on the left is default TF2, and then on the right is changed TF2 with the color correction added, and that looks good. The only thing that I would remove is the how's it called? Wait, let me check. It's called the diffusion. Yeah, I was about to say that but wasn't sure. So I have this enabled because Morf used diffusion quite a lot in his videos, but I think it looks better without diffusion because people don't really like it from what I've seen. So yeah, just make sure to disable that, and I think it looks pretty good. Like it highlights all the colors and so on, which I really like. And you have to keep in mind that for every single clip you will most likely need to edit the color correction a little bit. For example, if you're at Badlands Choke, if you're at Gulliwash, at the choke area as well, what happens is that the the choke area points get very like saturated, and if you add a lot of like exposure or something, then you might end up having a really like shiny ground or something, and you don't really want it. So make sure to adjust the colors so that it fits every single clip. And right here on last, it looks pretty good, but you can still see those like really like shiny points on the right, like the white walls basically. So how this plugin works: after installing, you will have to drag the default preset onto the like the recorded TF2 footage. So it's really easy. Just click the mouse, the left mouse button onto the default preset. It highlights the default preset. As you can see, it adds like blue stripes around. That means that it's highlighted, and then I'm just dragging it over onto the clip. Just release mouse, release left mouse key or button, and then you have the default preset right here. And as you can see, there are no effects right here. And what you will have to do is make sure to find a perfect like place where you want to edit and add the color correction. I'm just gonna leave it right here, for example, and that's fine for me. And then what you do is you click on edit. So because I have a preset saved already, I'm not gonna do that. I'm just gonna click edit right here, and a new window will pop up. And this is the magic bullet looks like window where you can edit your color correction, with all the different effects. If you go to the left side, you get all these already saved presets. You can of course go for those and see if you can come up with something good, but make sure to not destroy TF2, because some people just use like literally the same color correction as Counter-Strike people use, or like COD people use, where you can't see shit as well. So make sure to not do that. So, and for example, don't add a preset like this, because it's awful. Just make sure to, for example, go for blue sky, and then remove the gradient, and look, you have a good color correction already. Just don't destroy the TF2 look. Make sure it stays kind of like default, but like I mentioned, you need to add sort of saturation in it, contrast, and then it should look good. Alright, anyway, let's get into the into my preset that I have over here. So like I said, I have the diffusion disabled because it kinda destroys the look at some point, so I'm just gonna not use that. So first thing that you will need to make this look good is the exposure plugin. So if you want to see it in like individual plugins, you can just go to the right side, just drag your mouse over there, and then you get all of these effects right here, and you get 5 different like tabs that you can go through as well. So that's subject, matte, lens, camera, and post. I don't know if it's called matte or I don't know, just whatever. So find exposure, just the same process, just highlight it and drag it at the bottom like this. As you can see, it's added now, but I don't need 2 exposure plugins, so I'm just gonna leave it to 1. By default it's set to 60, but at some points, like you can see that the white points, the white like walls are kind of highlighted a bit too much in my opinion. So what I'm going to do is I will change it to like 40 or 30, it's usually fine, and then that looks already a bit better. And then what I would do is go to the saturations tab, and then I would drag the saturations or change from 112 to 100 or something, and then usually it's fine. But then make sure to not like overdo this, because if you drag this too much, as you can see, like it just destroys the whole look, and some people just tend to do that all the time, and make sure to not do that. Alright, so the second thing from the subject tab that we'll need is saturation. You can just quickly, you know, copy all the settings. So for the saturation, by default for me it was set to 112, but at some points I use 100. Exposure compensation is set to 0. The component balance, the red is set to 0.335. The green is set to 0.609, and the black is set to 0. That's it for this. So basically what the saturation does, it just, you know, adds like all, it doesn't really add, but it just highlights the colors. So for example, if we move this, you know, to the right, as you can see, the red soldier becomes like super reddish. So make sure to not do that. You could leave it maybe on like 105 or 4, I don't know, it's really up to you. So at this point I'm just gonna leave it on 105. That's gonna be fine. Then the third plugin from the subject tab that we'll need is warm/cool. Let's see what this does. You can test it right here by enabling and disabling. It sort of adds greenish look to the video. Instead of being like sort of bluish, it becomes a bit more like natural, let's say, or a bit brighter in my opinion. And the settings that I use for warm/cool is minus 0.112, tint plus 0.068, and exposure compensation set to 0. That's it for this. And then we move to the matte tab, and then the gradient part. As you can see, it basically adds an sort of overlay at the top part, so that you get this nice, you know, like sort of black, or not really black, but darkish color at the top, because if we had this disabled, then the colors at the top would be a bit, you know, destroyed in my opinion, and this like just, you know, makes it look overall prettier, just, you know, so you don't end up having an awful color correction when you render your finished project in TF2. And then, like I said, the diffusion, I don't really suggest using it, so if you want to use it, just do it on your own. And then we go to the lens tab, and then the flare just sort of highlights the whole look of TF2 pretty much. As you can see, it like highlights the shadows and so on, you know, which is a good thing as well in TF2. So size is set to 70%, strength is set to 5%, and then exposure compensation is set to plus 0.20. Then we move to our lens tab, it is the Vignette. As you can see, I've added sort of, you know, like I've just darkened the corners pretty much, like right here on the lower right, and lower left, and top left, so that it's not too, you know, like once again too bright. Just a nicer look when it's a bit darkish or whatever. So for the Vignette, the center is set to 0, radius 1.288, aspect is set to 1, spread is set to 0.790, fall off set to 0.500, strength is set to 75%, exposure compensation once again to 0, and then the color is set to, everything's set to 0 basically, so nothing really to say. So there goes that, and then the grad exposure, it makes the video, like the top part, look a bit brighter, so that it's not too dark, as you can see right here, because this is way too dark. Like, you can see that this area is sort of brighter, and then the top area is, you know, kind of darkish. So this just, you know, plugin basically just helps you find the right contrast. Well, it doesn't really help, but you know, it's up to you how well you play with this plugin, so that you can match, you know, the colors basically everywhere, so that you don't have, you know, so you don't end up having like a dark layer here, then if, for example, a bright layer right here, and then right here you end up having like a mixture of, you know, awfulness. For example, just, you know, oversaturated stuff goes here, just as an example. So make sure everything looks, you know, polished and even, and if it's not, then it's pretty bad. You have to, you know, try and improve on that, if you get what I mean. It's kind of difficult to explain when you kind of understand everything, and then it's difficult to express that. Anyway, the grad exposure settings stops is set to plus 0.70, x1 is set to minus 0.8%, x2 is set to minus 0.5%, and then the y1 is set to minus 92.6%, and then y2 is set to plus 99.3%. Fall off is set to 0.500, and then the color balance, red, green, and black, is set to 1. And then we move to another tab called camera for the saturation. I know that we had saturation right here in the subject field, but we need this one as well. So right here the saturation is set to 107%, exposure compensation as always on 0, and then the component balance, the red color is set to 0.309, green is set to 0.609, and the black is set to 0.082. And then we move to the pose tab, the warm and cool once again. As you can see, it adds sort of bluish look to the TF2, because I feel like the blue color fits, in my opinion, fits, you know, in TF2, and I really like blue, so, you know, why not use a bit of blue. So the settings for warm / cool, plus 0.255, tint minus 0.008, exposure compensation set to 0, and that is about it. Sorry if I didn't really explain everything well, but I tried my best. If you are going to have any questions regarding that, if you missed something or didn't understand, let me know. I'll try and explain if I can. And for example, we could probably talk about those, you know, presets that I said that already come up with magic bullet looks. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna remove this. Oh, and one thing, when you start working, you know, on a frag video in TF2 or something, make sure to not add the color correction instantly, because when you like have a lot of, you know, TF2 footage recorded, and you add everything to Vegas, especially, it's gonna start crashing and not, you know, letting you preview your footage. If you have the magic bullet looks, you know, like color correction sorted already, so make sure to do that afterwards, not like, you know, when you just start working. That's my suggestion, because I've had it before where I just would instantly add color correction, and then I would be like, I can't preview this, like, what's the issue? And then I found out that, you know, it was sort of causing the issue. But overall, Sony Vegas isn't really a good program to edit it keeps crashing a lot of the times. The preview still doesn't work really well and so on, so just, you know, see if you can use a better program like Adobe Premiere or something. But since I'm lazy, I'm just using this program. Alright, so let's drag the default preset and then click on edit. And let's see if we can find some default preset that we could try and use. There are pretty decent, like, you know, presets that you could use. For example, this one, as you can see, it's pretty decent, but some areas are really dark, and you could test, you know, which plugin like causes that issue. So as you can see, the film grain doesn't really do anything. It just adds sort of grainish effect to TF2. Maybe you can see this if I drag this. See, like, it just adds grain and it looks sort of professional. Anyway, so as we can see when we disable the curves plugin, is that it kind of destroys the whole look. So what we could do is, you know, try and play with the settings. So for example, the contrast, you know, we could try and drag it down and then see if anything changes. As you can see, it looks really good now compared to what we had before. It looks, you know, subtle, a nicer look overall. And then you could just literally go with that if you can't really come up with anything else. You know, just a matter of time you spend testing and etc. The blue sky preset is pretty good when you remove the gradient, because you don't need that. What else is pretty good? I used to use this as well, but you need to, you know, keep working and testing, seeing what you can come up with. Just make sure to not give up, because it's not an easy job, and the more you work, you know, you'll just gain more experience and become better at this. Like I mentioned, it's not an easy task, so don't rush. Spend a lot of time, you know, editing. And I think that's about it. You can of course use the default plugins if you can be bothered with this magic bullet looks. For example, going for color curves, color corrector. What else did they use? There are a bunch of like plugins that you could, you know, find useful without that magic bullet looks. So just, you know, make sure, like I said, to test stuff, experiment, don't be afraid, see what you can come up with. Maybe you'll be able to find a good, you know, default plugin in Sony Vegas, and you might get a good color correction with it. So, you know, I just can wish you luck, guys. Have fun with this, and make sure, just as a friendly tip, do not like overdo the color correction TF2, because believe me, it's gonna like make people mad that watch, and they will just close the video. So for example, you end up seeing a video like this. Wait, let me just disable this, and then it looks really bad, like you can't see shit, you know, when people just destroy the whole look and just it becomes, I don't know, like a code or CSS. Just don't do that. And yeah, I think that's it. Hopefully I haven't forgotten anything. And the next tutorial that I'm going to do is a smoothing tutorial. I've done one in the past, but I am going to make a proper one this time, and hopefully people will start using, you know, smoothing, because it's pretty easy thing. It's just that, I don't know, for whatever reason, people like find it really difficult to use. But yeah, I will try my best and explain everything in the next tutorial. And like I mentioned, if you have any questions, let me know in the comments, and I will see you next time. Peace.